Okay, so hey, I'm Susan Boyer. This is Susie Zurenda. We're the two Southern Susans. We're here to discuss the book of the month for the Lowcountry Book Club. Our tech team has just gotten us set up. Y'all know, you might remember last month we were downtown in Greenville at the Weston Poinsett at Spoonbread, and we had a wonderful time.
We did.
But we had some sound issues, and so we thought we're going to try this at home. So today we're in my dining room. And we're going to try this. My granddarling, Sierra, put together the tea for us, and we're getting ready to enjoy some Darjeeling. We have a pot of Darjeeling that's brewed, and a glass of champagne. So we're going to get started on lunch, and we'll check back in with you guys shortly.
We are back in Susan's lovely dining room, and look at this spread that her granddaughter helped prepare. We have cucumber sandwiches, chicken salad croissants, pimento cheese, blueberry scones, I may never go home, fruit, sweets, and cheese straws. So if you're from the South, you know those are a necessity.
Oh, and we have our glass of champagne. So yes. We're going to have a bite of lunch, and then we'll be back to talk about the last original wife. Now, it is lunchtime or thereabouts. Where we are, it's taken us a little while to pull it together, but we're videoing this, and it will be live, or not live, it'll be played in the group on Thursday evening at 8 o'clock as usual. But in case you're curious why I keep talking about lunch and it's in the evening, it's because we tape this early, and I don't stop it and redo if we mess up one little thing, but if we mess up really bad, they can edit it out. Okay, cheers.
Cheers. It's bright in here, though it's rainy outside.
Hey y'all, we're back. We've had a little bit of lunch. We're still kind of snacking and having a little more tea, but we did want to get started talking about the book, of course, The Last Original Wife by Dorothea Benton Frank. I hope many of you have had a chance to read it. I had actually read this originally when it first came out in 2013, and actually this book was signed by Dottie at a luncheon in Greenville, South Carolina. She signed it to me. I actually had lunch at her table that day, and I got to talk to her, and she was just the most warm and wonderful person. I didn't know her well, of course, but I was very grateful for her time and just her enthusiasm and wisdom and whatnot. But she signed it for me, and it's special to me. But I did go back and reread it for the book club, and I enjoyed it again a second time. I always enjoy her books, but this one I think was special to me just because of the subject matter, and we're going to talk about that a little bit now. Because we are fortunate to have with us a former English teacher, we're going to talk about the trope. Okay? All right, Susie, tell us about the trope.
Well, the overwhelming trope in the book, of course, if you've read it, is the idea of older men getting rid of their original wives and getting younger women. And I think Dottie in this book explores just how successful that really is. There's a big difference between the idealism of it and the reality of it, which is one of the things I found very enjoyable about the book.
Right. I did so enjoy the scene in the country club where the two young Barbie brides were fighting.
I did too. Yes, that's a very memorable scene.
Yes, that was quite memorable. And there were a lot of memorable scenes, and of course witty dialogue. I thoroughly enjoyed the book. I will say that something that just really stuck with me about that whole thing, and I think one reason this book really resonates with me is because I know women, mostly of my mother's generation, I'm thinking, who were treated this way by men. Not that, any of them had $22 million. Right. They didn't. Or anything like that.
Or actually took the younger women. But just the domination.
Yes. The where they were in this place where their whole life was dictated by a man, and he held the purse strings, and you had to kind of dance around him to get money to do anything, and he controlled everything and had to be in charge of everything. That sort of dynamic is one that I remember from my childhood, you know, women that I
You're
knew
exactly right. Yes.
who lived with that kind of thing. And so it resonated with me. And I really think that one of the things about Dottie's books in general is that they always resonate on some level. It's something that women can identify with.
Right.
If they don't, if they haven't been through it themselves, they know somebody who has.
Yes.
It's very relatable.
Right.
Her books are very relatable.
Yes, and yes, when I was reading it and the trope began, now I was very fortunate. I had a very forward-thinking father, and he and my mother were partners, and they made decisions together. And my daddy was fond of saying, well, your mother makes her money and she does with it what she wants, and then I just take care of everything else. But my father's best friend from early childhood, so maybe they wouldn't have even been friends as adults because they really were often at each other's throats. He was exactly like one of these men. And for years and years, we went to the beach together, and I can remember that, I won't say the name because actually he is still living. His wife is dead. But my mother would go shopping. It was Crosby's at Myrtle Beach. It was this lovely, lovely dress shop. And she would go, and she might buy a bathing suit. And she was my mother didn't squander money. But I remember her friend went with her, and I was with them. And her friend wanted this dress, and she couldn't buy it. She wasn't allowed to buy it. And I just, it was so foreign to me. And I thought, what? I mean, my mother wanted a bathing suit. She was going to buy the bathing suit. She had to go back and ask her husband if she could buy the dress. And then he had to accompany her to the dress shop to decide if she could buy the dress. I don't remember whether the dress was purchased. All I remember is, and here's the kicker, this lady was a music teacher. She taught piano lessons all of my childhood. She had to turn over every dime to him.
Oh, my goodness.
So this situation is very real.
Right, it is. And it's very relatable. And I just have to say that early on in this book, I lamented that it was not a murder mystery. Because if ever a man needed killing, in my view, it is Wesley. Wesley, I mean, okay. Later in the book, you know, it did come out he had a few redeeming qualities, and one has to admit that he provided well for his family. I'm not saying
so far as he wanted to.
So far as he wanted to, as far as it suited him.
He's just like my father's best friend.
But I really think that she could have worked a killing in there if she wanted to.
If she wanted to,
yeah,
and we would have volunteered.
Yes, we would. All jokes aside, it was a wonderful book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The witty remarks, the little asides that she makes, I really enjoyed. And she does that in all her books. But, you know, this one, for some reason, really resonated with me. Even I won't say it's my favorite Dottie Frank book, but it's one of my top 3 favorites, just because of that.
Yeah.
Because it's so relatable.
Well, and I admitted to Susan this morning that I had never read a Dottie Frank book until this one, and so now this being here today has given me the opportunity to do so, and she is certainly a very entertaining author.
And y'all know I just couldn't believe that. I just have a hard time believing that, because I started reading Dottie Frank books, oh gosh, I don't know how many years ago, probably when she first started publishing them.
Yeah.
And I was one of those,
I knew Dottie, and I'm very familiar with her. I just never read it.
No, I understand. Well, you know what? We all have our own reading taste.
That's
This was like, her books were like the bullseye for me. You know, that was like my perfect summer read. And I was one of those waiting for her next book every year. I was that sort of
I've got a good friend who's the same way. She can wait for her books to come out.
Right. And you know, I think back to like when I was reading the first couple, Sullivan's Island and then Plantation. Plantation probably is my favorite of all of them. And there's just something about it that was fun for me, and it sticks in my head. But all of her books.
Do you think, at least on a subconscious level, Susan, that your wonderful book that I finished not long ago, Big Trouble on Sullivan's Island, is in some ways a nod to? Wasn't that her first book?
Her first book was Sullivan's Island.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think
so. But then we writers don't ever fully know what's in our subconscious. You don't fully know where
things come from. But I think really where that came from for me, we lived in Mount Pleasant for a number of years. We lived there for a while when our kids were younger. And when I was first writing, I would drop the kids off at school and ride my bike to Sullivan's Island because we lived that close. And I could just ride across the bridge and down the beach.
Just like happens in the novel.
Right, and then ride back home. And so that was always special to me. And when I first was publishing books and wrote the Liz Talbot books, I wanted to have this imaginary island that was similar to Sullivan's Island, but then I kind of, I guess maybe graduated to writing about a real island. I don't know. So I think I was always going to write about Sullivan's Island.
Right.
But certainly, you know.
Certainly. I mean, you said you love that book. So
right. I did.
So
I love all her books.
Yeah.
And honestly, some of the cute things that the little things that go into the internal monologue of the characters. There was a point where she refers to something about the she-devil that lives inside of all women or something like that. And, and it just, they're just little turns of phrase and little things that she used that I really enjoy. I did enjoy, and someone mentioned to me over the weekend, I was at a Barnes & Noble in Myrtle Beach, and there was a lady who stopped by to chat, and she mentioned the character of Harlan, Leslie's brother, and how badly he was treated by Wes and all that. And of course, that is, I was going to say, most of the book is not really about like it's not an issue book. It's a women's issue book.
Right.
But there is a little bit of a dealing with
there is, and that's kind of become another. I mean, I was thinking about that with the character of Harlan. There are a number of books that I've read in the last few years where there's often a sibling who is in, the LGBTQ, and I'm not saying all the letters correctly, community. And that has become, and in fact, even I, in my most recent novel, one of my main character's siblings is that way. And so that's become, and I suppose it's, of course it opens us up to the real world. Right. But that's, something that she had, and that was 2013. And I think that's something that a lot of us authors we read it, and perhaps we even include it in our own writing. Right. And, I think she deals with that in a couple of her novels, too. And the thing is, I also found that relatable because I have family members who are part of that community, and I have very good friends and people who I love dearly, yes. And I can't imagine having a husband who treated somebody that you love so horribly. I mean, that would just be awful, to not be able to have your brother or whoever for Christmas or whatever because of your husband's... It's just another problem with Les. It's really all about him. It's not about Harlan. It's about Les being insecure. And needing killing. It's about Les needing killing. I go back to that. And I don't mean to harp on it. It's not that I can't read a book without a dead body. I can. I just think that this particular character so richly deserved it, even though he was a good provider. I mean, Yes. But I don't know. I'm going to even quibble with that. But just because you can be a provider, but if your wife can't even buy a dress that she doesn't without permission, heck. Right. No, I hear you. Keep your money. I hear you. All right. So we do have a few questions from folks in the group. Not questions, but things that folks in the group thought that we might want to discuss. And that's kind of how we'll do this, I guess. When it's when the author is not available, unfortunately, for discussion, we can discuss the book amongst ourselves. And if people in the group have things they would like to have us talk about, then we'll bring it up, and then you guys can go into comments and put your 2 cents worth or whatever. But Diane McGoldrick said, was there a person, situation that you observed in your life that mirrored the scenario that played out with these husbands and wives that inspired this story, either when you were growing up or as an adult? And I think this really probably was a question for Dottie, who of course will not be able to comment on that, sadly. But the thing is, I think all of us know women who have been in that situation. I actually don't. I mean, can't, but it may be I don't know I don't know personally any men who took significantly younger wives.
Right.
Significantly younger.
Right. And I say that. I don't really know of that situation per se.
I see it all
either,
the time.
But
see it all the time.
But it's, the situation where the husband was so controlling and so self-centered, and the whole household,
that absolutely.
The whole household revolved around the man.
Absolutely.
That I observed frequently.
Yes. Yes.
Throughout my life. But now, I
can go to a musical performance, and I can see, a much older man with a 20 or 30-something-year-old woman. I know it's out there. I just haven't personally, thank goodness.
Right, and I don't know if I remember when she was talking about this book, because she spoke that day at that luncheon, and I remember there was an anecdote that she told, but I don't remember exactly what it was. But there was some anecdote, I think, that triggered it, but I wish she was here to tell us. But anyway, the thing is, I really believe that, I'm just right back to feeling like how much he needed killing. I'm sorry, I'm going to try not to harp on that. But I think that that's kind of a universal thing, that we all know this syndrome. Okay, so Niels Beringer says, do you think Les was just in leaving her family? How would you have responded if you were in the same situation now? I think she had every right to leave and probably should have left a lot sooner. And she was being taken advantage of by not only her husband, but also her daughter. Now, I can kind of see where, women have a hard time with this, because we're trained well that you take care of your family.
Right.
And that's the priority.
Right.
And
but Dottie's leading our sympathies that way.
Right.
I mean, she is characterizing that daughter and characterizing that husband so that our sympathies fall with less. Right. So that when she does leave, we're not shocked. We're not terribly upset because it seems justified. It seems very justified.
You go, girl, and you should have left a long time ago.
And that's what I think Dottie is inviting us to think.
Right. I thought so too. And I feel like, you have to have somebody you can root for. And definitely in this book, I was rooting for Leslie. It's not that, anything against any of the rest of them, but Leslie this was her story.
Right.
This was her journey. And I definitely rooted for her. I think she was justified. And if it had been me, I hope that I would have left earlier. What about you?
Let's just say I did.
Ooh. Oh my goodness.
We'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right. Would you like some more champagne?
Not quite the same circumstances.
Okay. All right.
I'm happy and everybody's happy. So
okay. That's good. Well, all right now. So Janet would like to know, she says, Les had me convinced in the therapist office that she was going to leave Wes. But did either of you think that she might change her mind and stay? I was going to have a hissy fit if she backed down. Me too, Janet. I was going to have a hissy fit. And I'm so glad she didn't. But it did cross my mind a couple of times that she was wavering.
Yes, yes, she was wavering.
And I think that's natural because as women, we're pulled back to hearth and home and family, and and she had 30 years invested in that relationship,
Yes.
And I get that, but I'm so glad that she made the decision she did. And can I just say also that I'm very happy that she ended up in a beach house on Solomon's Island, because I cannot think of a happier place for anybody to end up than a beach house on Solomon's Island.
I can't either.
So, well done on that. Okay, so Sarah Harwood says, this book examines growth in the journey to self-awareness as Les figures out what she wants in life and how to get it. She doesn't seem to see the parallel, but her children echo that journey. What do you think a sequel, Les a year or two later, would look like? Would Les support the non-traditional paths her children have taken, and would she recognize that they inherited their independent spirit from her? Well, I wish we were in a position to have that sequel and find out for sure, but I do think that it was a growing situation for all of them. I think that her children learned some things through this exercise, and hopefully they grew up too. And I do think it's true that they inherited their independent spirit from her.
Right.
But I also think that at the beginning, at least the daughter, well, I think they were both taking advantage of their parents.
Yeah, in some ways the daughter seems terribly deep. She is independent in a sense, but she's terribly dependent.
Right.
As well. The son, no, is fully gone off. You know,
well, but he was taking money.
He's on the payroll.
Yeah, he was on the payroll. And you know, you hope at that age that your children are not. And of course, I'm not going to comment on that at all because, you know, oh, maybe I need some more.
Here we are, bearing all of our secrets here.
Yeah, no, I will say that those issues are some that also resonate. You know, you have children sometimes who have a hard time launching.
Well, that's right. And I suppose, you know, because Les left, her daughter was then left to take care of herself, her own devices, and didn't have any choice but to stand on her own 2 feet, which was for the best.
And I think that was for the best. I think that it helped her to move past a place where, you know, kind of grow a little bit. And then in the epilogue, it was talking about that she was, you know, seeing somebody and had kind of settled down. And because she had been kind of a party girl and, you know, she was kind of settling down.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. We do have the epilogue here in the book that, you know, invites us to imagine what a sequel would contain. Right.
Okay. Those are all of the suggestions for discussion that we have. Do you have any final thoughts about the book? Anything you wanted to share? Anything that you...
Well, I just am so glad she had a Jonathan. Wasn't that something? You know, that's not only is it fantastic that you get to live on Sullivan's Island, you have this incredible sort of perfect man who comes out of your past and wow.
Right. You know what I think, and I think you just put your finger on why this book is a favorite of mine in the Dottie Frank catalog. It's because it's almost a fantasy.
Yes,
you take a woman who is living a life where she's sort of, you know, her husband has her under his thumb.
Right.
And she's not happy. And all of a sudden, she has millions of dollars.
Oh, yes.
A beach house.
Oh, yes.
And a wonderful man who dotes on her.
Oh, the perfect escapist.
And so it is. It is a fantasy come true.
Yes.
And don't we all need a fantasy?
We all need that escapism.
And so to me, that's the perfect feel-good book, you know, for women, because life very often is not like the fantasy.
Yes.
And I just want to go on record as saying, you know, I'm very blessed, and I'm not complaining about anything.
As am I.
But you know, often we have hard things to deal with, and of course Leslie dealt with some hard things, but she got to a place where she was situated pretty nicely by the end of this book.
And I suppose we all enjoy the fantasy and the opportunity to live that fantasy vicariously.
Yes, I think that's true. To vicariously living out our fantasies.
Yes.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Whoop. All right, y'all. I think that's everything we have to talk about this month. I hope you're enjoying this format. We certainly are. I think we'll do this again. Next month we have Alicia Bissett, I think. And we'll talk about what format that's going to be at a later date. But I do know that we are in some way, shape, or form going to talk with her because she's agreed to join us. So next month we'll be able to have questions for the author. But I do hope y'all are enjoying this format because, like I said, we really are.
The two Susans are enjoying
it. Yes,
we
are. All right. Well, thank you so much, and happy reading, and we'll see you next time.